Hi there. Thank you for participating in the case story discussion on Recipe for Rachel and submitting your reflections. I wanted to offer a little bit of direction in your thoughts as you try to become more family-centered in your thinking about families and working with families. It can be very tempting to be judgmental of Sandy, as she was so harsh with Rachel about her eating and punishing her publicly at times and preventing her from having one bite of the food at the party. And it can be tempting to see this as a behavior in the parent that needs to change. But I'd really like for us to explore what's beneath the surface a bit more. Hopefully you took the time to do a little bit of research and learn more about Prader-Willi. I used to pronounce it Prader-Willi. You might have been too, but I've learned that it's Prader-Willi. And if you learned about Prader-Willi, there may be a few things that stuck out in your mind as you thought about the way that Sandy interacted with Rachel and what might be going on beneath the surface that explains her behavior. For example, we know that children who are people who have Prader-Willi have low muscle tone. And low muscle tone, we know if you have less muscle, you burn fat less, you burn calories, you burn fewer calories. And so lower muscle tone, or hypotonia as it's called, combined with hyperphagia, or an obsession with eating and an obsessive desire to eat all of the time, results in obesity for almost all people who have Prader-Willi. It's not necessarily a behavior that can be taught easily. Our typical behavioral strategies don't always work. There's something else important to know about Prader-Willi, and that is that people with Prader-Willi are more likely to have intellectual impairment. The IQ ranges from the 40s to the average or even above average range. Sandy, no doubt, was aware of this. And if we look into studies of obesity and Prader-Willi, we learn that children who have the higher IQs, children that are in the typical range for intellectual functioning and have Prader-Willi, are those who have managed their weight. And we also know a number of things about obesity from the just from public domain, right? We know that obesity places you at greater risk for heart disease, for diabetes, and a shorter lifespan. So when you are a parent and you have a child for whom you would jump in front of a train to save his or her life, I could see how one of the pieces that might be beneath the surface is Sandy is afraid. One of those pieces beneath the surface is fear. Fear that my child could die. Fear that my child won't have the same educational opportunity, won't have the same intellectual performance as she could if we were able to control her weight. So while Sandy's interactions seem harsh and unforgiving, this may be what's beneath the surface. I'd also like for you to consider something else about just obesity in general and celebrations around food. It may seem like, well, this is a special occasion. Sandy could have let her participate this one time. In schools, and especially in early childhood, there is a special occasion every other day. There's a reason for cookies and cupcakes, and I actually happen to be one of those parents who didn't allow my young children to have sweets. I can remember when Spencer was, maybe 5 or 6, and a family member had come up to visit us and gave Spencer a packaged honey bun. I wasn't around when this happened, and this would have been a big no-no. He had no idea what a honey bun it was or a donut was. But later he said, I want more of that circle food, because he didn't even know it had a name. And we all get to make those decisions. Was I right? Is Sandy right? Is somebody else right in the exact way that they go about this parenting task, who knows? There's not a manual. Spencer has really great health outcomes, so I hope that worked. But at the end of the day, I made the best decisions I knew how to make for my kid. It's not my place to judge somebody else for how they do it. Although we do have ideas of certain eating habits that we could say are certainly poor or certainly good, but there's so much gray in between there, and it's not really our place to say how a parent should be making these decisions about diet and enforcing those decisions or guiding those decisions. But I just wanted you to think about, in particular with Prader-Willi, the later health outcomes and the educational outcomes, the intellectual disability that often accompanies Prader-Willi, and the one way it seems to maximize your chances of not having an intellectual disability is by having a lower body mass index for this group. So hopefully this will help you think more about what was beneath the surface. Perhaps it could help you see Sandy's point of view a bit better, step into her shoes a bit better, because that is indeed the purpose of this class. There are difficult cases that we'll be reading, and every time it's our job to step in the shoes of the parents, see what may be beneath the surface, so that we can be as objective as possible and interact and intervene in evidence-based and supportive, kind, and helpful ways. I hope this helps. Take care.